I'm Congressman Steve King of Iowa's 5th Congressional District, and I serve on the House Judiciary Committee and also on the Constitution Subcommittee. I'm standing here in front of the United States Supreme Court, where the oral arguments before the Supreme Court have carried on all week. They started on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, and as I speak, it might well be that the Supreme Court is making or even has made a decision on the constitutionality of Obamacare. Now, we won't know that decision until June. It's one of the most closely guarded secrets around this hill. But they often will listen to the oral arguments and then make their decision and begin to write their opinions between now and the time that it'll be released, perhaps in June. And so what has happened here this week is these steps behind me have been covered with people arguing, demonstrating, chanting, news media all over these steps, people on either side of the argument. One of the first things that was interesting was that the advocates for Obamacare finally came out and said, and started to call it Obamacare. The people from the White House said we're yes on Obamacare. Well, many others said no on Obamacare. I have said for 2 years, we need to repeal it, we need to pull it out by the roots. It's unconstitutional in a number of different ways. That was the central question before this Supreme Court here this week. And the central piece of the constitutionality pivoted on the individual mandate. Can the federal government compel an American, just by virtue of breathing this free American air, and compel them to buy an insurance policy because they believe that somehow they've engaged in interstate commerce? The Commerce Clause, if the Supreme Court finds Obamacare to be constitutional, will have been stretched to the point where there is no limitation to the federal government whatsoever after that. I think many of the enumerated powers would collapse. I think the 10th Amendment would collapse. It would be a resounding decision of activism on this court. But as I sat inside the courtroom on the third day of the deliberations, by the courtesy of the Chief Justice, by the way, and I want to express my gratitude to Chief Justice Roberts for recognizing my work in the Judiciary Committee on Obamacare itself and on the Constitution Subcommittee to make sure that I had a place to hear some of the most profound arguments that have been made before this court in the history of this country. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. The dynamics inside the courtroom are something that you never see the video of. You heard the audio for one of the first times out here. But it is a very dynamic engagement of question and answer from the Solicitor General and the advocate for the plaintiffs in this case. And the drama that went on inside that courtroom will be written about for years. And so I just encourage people, pay attention, watch this decision as it unfolds. The deliberations have taken place. But if the Supreme Court should find that Obamacare is constitutional in every aspect except for the individual mandate and throw it back to the Congress over on the opposite side of the street, we will have one huge mess on our hands, and it will, in either case, impact the elections coming forward in November.